Hello, my name is Kelly Kingman, and I'm doing a presentation on chaparrals and fire adaptation. Today's presentation will be on chaparrals in California and their adaptation to fire. To begin, we will talk about chaparrals. What is chaparral? Chaparral is a plant community that thrives in Southern California's Mediterranean climate. But what is a Mediterranean climate? According to the Lexico Oxford Dictionary, a Mediterranean climate is one that is distinguished by warm, wet winters under prevailing westerly winds and calm, hot, dry summers. The areas or regions found on Earth that experience a unique Mediterranean climate are found in Chile, South Africa, southwestern Australia, and in our home state, California. On this slide is an image of maritime chaparral found in the Elfin Forest Preserve in Los Osos, California. Maritime chaparral is a type of chaparral that grows close to the ocean or sea. Chaparral is commonly referred to as shrubland due to the predominance of shrubs found within this community. According to the U.S. Forest Service, chaparral covers about 8.5 million acres from the mountains of Southern California through the Coast Ranges, Sierra Nevada foothills, and into the Southern Cascades and Klamath Mountains. And each contain exclusive microsystems with flora unique to the specific climate characteristics found in these environments. Here's an example of creosote shrubland that is found in dry desert climates. This image was taken in the Saline Valley and Death Valley National Park. Here is a picture of Ion chaparral found in Sacramento, California. In this photo, you see primarily Ion manzanita, which is considered an endangered, threatened species by the federal government. This is an image of episodic sagebrush that was found, according to the California Chaparral Institute, growing after the 2013 rim fire near Yosemite. It's a beautiful example of how chaparrals rebound after a fire episode. California Chaparral Institute explains that this regrowth provides critical habitat for species unseen since after the last fire. In addition, the California Chaparral Institute explains that they act as nurse plants to shade conifer seedlings, helping them to grow a forest again. This is a fantastic example on how chaparrals adapt to fire. Chaparrals have adapted to fire out of a necessity in order to survive, as it is a naturally occurring event in the Southern California ecosystem. Prior to developments from humans that threatened native shrublands in Southern California due to their close approximation to these areas and carelessness, fire occurred much less frequently than seen today, happening 1 to 3 times a century in chaparral environments known as fire return interval, typically occurred only once to every 3 centuries or even longer in some places during pre-settlement times, as mentioned by the U.S. Forest Services. Also, according to the California Chaparral Institute, chaparral fires occurred naturally only every 30 to 150 years or more, which stands in vast contrast to the number of events we experience yearly to every few years. Southern California's fire season typically runs during the hot months from May until fall. Southern California is experiencing fire more frequently in the recent decades, with fire returning to the same area every 10 to 20 years, altering the ecology of the landscape, according to the Ecological Society of America. However, in the last decade, these fire events seem to occur even more frequently. This increase in fires threatens the chaparral ecosystem as it doesn't give the vegetation time to rejuvenate. According to ecologist John Keeley, quoted by ESA, the Ecological Society of America, the reason for this increase in fires is partly climate, but also people starting fires during bad conditions. Chaparral ecosystems are dependent on fire for their existence, as mentioned in Learning to Live with Fire, published by CAL FIRE. Despite the apparent devastation after a wildland fire, fire is essential to the health of most ecosystems in California for several reasons. The first reason is that chaparral needs fire to germinate and therefore reproduce. The second, the California Chaparral Institute refers to this response to fire as the 5 basic strategies plants use to respond to fire in the chaparral, which is explained in the following slides. Obligate cedars are dependent on the chemicals found in wood burn materials and/or heat for them to germinate. Ceanothus and manzanitas are examples of plants in the chaparral ecosystem that need these conditions and are dependent on these fire cues in order to reproduce and continue the species. obligate resprators, according to California Chaparral Institute, depend on resprouting from their underground root systems or burrows to help create habitats after a fire. Manzanitas are both obligative resprators and facultative seeders. I will explain facultative seeders further in the next slide. Obligate resprators can regenerate from both a seed and they can sprout from dormant buds, also referred to as burrows that grow on the plant. Facultative seeders are plants whose seeds need exposure to the chemicals found in wood and smoke from fires in order to germinate. Manzanitas are an example of facultative seeders. Fire followers or episodic chaparral are just what the name suggests. These are plants that show up as a result of the after effects of fire, which result in an explosive display of wildflowers after the flames, according to the California Chaparral Institute. These flowers are stimulated to germinate by the chemicals from charred wood and smoke. The California Chaparral Institute goes on to explain that some plants are particularly dependent on fire, showing up within a year or two of the fire events. In this image from CCI are examples of fire follower chaparral. They are our California poppy and Periphycelia. Here's another example given by the California Chaparral Institute that they refer to as endemic fire flowers, called whispering bells. And finally, my last example of endemic fire followers are geophytes, which are bulb or tuber perennial plants that respond to fire in two ways. They are obligate resprators that reproduce from sprouts coming from the plant after the fire, and they are stimulated to grow from the boost of abundant sunlight they receive due to the disappearance of overhead foliage due to fire. I hope that my presentation helped you to join me in appreciation of our beautiful chaparral habitat and our need to protect it. There is a lot of debate on how to manage fires while protecting our chaparral ecosystem. Some suggest controlled burns that destroy acres of natural habitat, while others suggest less invasive methods such as using fire-resistant building materials, sprinkling systems, and landscapes that assist in fire protection. However, I believe it's essential that we protect our native chaparral ecosystems because they serve as a natural habitat for our native plants and animals, they assist in recharging underground water, and they provide protection from water erosion that occurs when vegetation is destroyed by fire.